Hello everyone, Justin with Deep Dive Stocks here, and today is your after hours market dive for Monday, September 29th. Let's get started. Today we're going to look at ES Futures, GME, Robinhood, and Bitcoin. Today on ES Futures we see it was a green day, 0.25%, nothing too exciting. We did have these brief moments of bearish liquidity, but it looks like things have bounced up on the daily for ES Futures quite nicely. If we zoom into the 15-minute to see how things did, we see the most of the bullish action, however, was in that pre-market area, and the market opened up to some pretty substantial downside. So let's take a quick look to see how things went with the replay functionality. And we see that after hours on Friday, we have this nice bullish liquidity. We see LDPM L5 is making a little bit of a B run towards spot. A little bit of profit taking. It seems like we get some glimpses of bearish liquidity, but nothing too exciting. But bearish liquidity starts to take hold around 5 in the morning, uses LDPM L5 as support, finally breaks through, and we expect it to move to LDPM L7, which it looks like partially did, but we get this. For any of the medical professionals out there, the market had a junctional complex today, and so we had this bearish liquidity. We fell down towards LDPM L7, a little bit of a bounce. We had this, so this complex is like an aggressive ask walks in and then an aggressive bid walks in. It looks like they canceled each other out. But the overall net result is that we are still in bearish liquidity land. And so the expectation is that we will once again test LDPM L, or like the support, which in this case is LDPM L6. So bearish on the near term, but that daily view was certainly bullish. GME, as we move over to GME, we see that it is still doing a nice bounce. We saw on Thursday, did that bounce off of LDPM L5 with that bullish liquidity. And then on Friday, we had that nice 5% day, and it looks like today is another nice green day for GME. The goal is always, or rather the expectation is still that we are going to move to LDPM L6, which is still hanging out up here at 29.37. And that gives us about another 8% moves, or 8% up, before we really kind of got to start, take a little bit of a pause, check on liquidity, make sure things aren't getting too crazy. And then as long as it's not, and as long as bullish liquidity continues, then we should expect movement beyond that resistance. We do see here, once again, though, just like we saw on the ES Futures, LDPM L5 is doing a little bit of a beeline. This does suggest like a rapid conversion from a bid support to a potentially, this ask up here, so resistance. It looks like we've broken through it, and LDPM L5 is looking content maintaining itself currently as a support. So, but something to keep an eye on. Perhaps it was just an organic bid moving up and setting a new value mark. It kind of gets difficult when you see one of the LDPM lines kind of just like beeline it for that. But we do see that aggressive bid came in right at the end of the market today at 345, and that was successful in pushing spot over that resistance. So evidence that it was more of a raising the floor for those value seekers on the 15-minute. So that is still pretty bullish. So 8% seems like 8% up seems like the reasonable expectation here for GME. Robinhood is doing some fun things. We had a brief reintroduction of bearish liquidity on Friday, and that tested LDPM L5. We see the market ended right on LDPM L5, and it seems today that it has done a phenomenal 13%. So nice, definitely a nice little bounce. And on this view, the daily, we don't see any profit taking. So LDPM L3 is very nicely settled below spot. So for now, there is no signs on the daily that this is going to be, a sort of high risk mean reversion incident. Well, okay. So that being said, as we zoom in to the, sorry, something in my eye. My left eye has the worst luck. There's always something hitting it in it. Just, I need to pay more attention. But we see this rapid LDPM L5. We see LDPM L3 on this 15-minute is already above spot. So when we zoom in, originally we didn't see any profit takers up on the daily view, but when we zoom in, we do in fact see a little bit of profit taking here. And so this setup should be relatively familiar. We should expect LDPM L5 to kind of do like this, and spot will probably do like this. You know, anywhere I would say between here. It usually just stays flat. And then the name of the game is, as the two start to meet, we're going to want to take another look, make sure that the bullish liquidity that LDPS is detecting is still withstanding this profit taking, right? So the name of the game becomes, as it starts approaching, we just want to make sure for any bearish signs like we did here on ES futures. But the idea is, if it remains bullish, then we should expect a nice little bounce. That's the bounce sound. But if it gets bearish, then we expect something to happen like we just saw on ES futures. But for now, so in other words, there's nothing, this is an exciting day for spot, and this is exciting and hopeful on the daily that bullish liquidity is going to usher continued price appreciation. But on the near term, we do have this pretty standard setup that we should be pretty used to by now. And so we're just going to have to do the standard things to keep an eye out for that. And mainly, you know, just making sure that the bearish liquidity, if it does come, it should be supported nicely on these LDPM L7 and L6s at 127, 125. And if the bearish liquidity doesn't come, then we should expect another bounce up. And we can see that the bullish liquidity definitely came in around 4 o'clock on Monday morning. So pretty exciting here on Robinhood. I kind of think that Robinhood's going to be the first of the new FANG stocks, truthfully. I think Google, Amazon, Meta, I think they're kind of, what are they? They're kind of like these fossil companies that only are really existing lately because they are able to cannibalize new ideas. But it doesn't look like they were able to cannibalize Robinhood. So this is what I think would normally happen if we didn't have financial overlords controlling every aspect of our lives and ensuring that novel, new, and impactful ideas don't ever make it to the public. Moving on, we have Bitcoin on the daily. We were monitoring the bearish liquidity on Bitcoin, and obviously the expectation was downside. And to my chagrin, Bitcoin is not listening. So we have a quite green day here, 1.80%. LDPS is still keeping things bearish. We do have the like in sync, in unison dips of LDPM. So this is a likely aggressive bid cascade. And in fact, when we turn on the lower order LDPMs, it does kind of look like that. Nothing too crazy, truthfully. This isn't like the most impactful aggressive bid cascade I've ever seen, but it's definitely there. It is somewhat noteworthy that it hasn't been able to switch spot bullish. This is usually something that you do see when you have aggressive bid cascades that are going to be, particularly impactful. And that's not what's happening here. So worth keeping an eye on. If we move into the 15, it's actually pretty interesting. Let's take a look at like the 28th and onwards. So yesterday, moving on the 5 though, since it's a little longy. And so we had this bull stack, this bearish liquidity, and this is 15. LDPS should be on balanced, perfect. Bearish liquidity, LDPM L5 holds itself as support. We get a nice little bounce. Things are bouncing. We get a nice bull stack. We have a little bit of profit taking starting to happen, so we're probably going to meet LDPM L5. We don't. Well, nope. Well, yep, maybe. We do, and we survive. So bullish liquidity comes in. It looks like by way of an aggressive bid cascade and then another aggressive bid cascade. So we have this double, we can see everything is pointing down here, and then it happens again in bigger force. And now we have that evidence of profit taking, and so this should be pretty recognizable for anyone. So price is likely going to meet LDPM L5, and we do have some profit taking happening, so high risk for LDPS to start printing bearish prints, in which case we need to be concerned of breaking through that LDPM L5 and then eventual migration to LDPM L6, which currently is not, I don't think, terribly far away. I'm kind of no longer estimating percentages in my head because they don't seem to be true. So LDPM L5 is about 0.6%, LDPM L6 resistance is 2% down, and L7 support is 3.61% down. So those would be the benchmarks if we start seeing that bearish liquidity. And this profit taking is pretty, it's up there. we could see that it's actually part of the wave. So if we add some of the smaller order LDPMs again, we should see a really nice organized aggressive bid cascade. And we do. Look at that. So we're essentially going through the motions of this aggressive bid cascade, this kind of dual peak action, but we can definitely see the wave occurring, those lower order LDPMs rising up and profit taking and hanging out. And it looks like, yeah, there's still some profit taking. LDPS is maintaining bullish liquidity pretty well, though, even with it, 1, 2, 3, 4 LDPMs, all 4 of the profit takers profit taking. So definitely concerned for if those profit takers exhaust that bullish liquidity and bring things in, glide the spot down to L5. Something to keep an eye out for. But for now, things do seem relatively bullish. So bullish on the near term for Bitcoin, which is shared with GME, and for the most part, Hood. There is a little bit of this, risk of needing LDPM L5 support before L5 those organic bids get up to spot. And the near term though for ES futures is bearish. So I guess everything is bullish on the near term except for ES futures, and on the long term it's a little different. Bitcoin is bearish, Hood was bullish, GME was bullish, and ES futures were bullish. So a little bit of a mixed field, maybe some near-term turbulence. I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye out on this Bitcoin performance and on GME, obviously, because at this point, I just want to know how the saga ends, at least in this chapter of it, right? I'm sure there's going to be many more exciting developments. And then, honestly, yeah, keeping an eye out on Robinhood too. I want to see how the profit taking manages. Really big, nice bullish sign if this profit taking sort of dissipates, price stagnates, LDPM L5 comes up, LDPS maintains bullish liquidity, and then another really fun bounce might happen. So we'll see. Some definitely exciting times in the market. And it's only Monday. So, all right, guys. This has been your After Hours Market Dive with Deep Dive Stocks and me, Justin. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you guys next time. Adios.